You are listening to the BBNI podcast, Journeys of Faith, Leadership and Life.
Welcome to today's episode of the BBNI podcast. My name is Emily Thompson and I am an Engagement Officer at the Northern Ireland Boys Brigade. If you have caught any of our other podcasts, you'll know that we love to share journeys of faith, leadership and life. And today I am delighted to welcome some very special guests into our podcast today. We have Irene Lowry from 76 Belfast, David Johnston from 1st Ballygrainey and Kenneth Vennard from 7th Portadown. It's an absolute delight to have you in our podcast room this afternoon. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, could you introduce yourselves and tell us something about yourself, both inside and outside of BB? And Irene, we'll start with you.
Okay. It's nice to be here with you today. And I'm Irene Lowry, as you already introduced me, and I'm a widow now of 15 years, and I was married to Raymond Lowry, whom I met through Boys Brigade when he joined our company to get playing football on the football team. We had two sons, Philip and Peter. I now have those two sons, their wives, two daughters-in-law, and I have 6 grandchildren. Wow. I worked for 34 years or so with children with additional needs and enjoyed every moment of that. And obviously have been in BB since I was 15. Before the days of restrictions on ages and qualifications, when volunteers were really volunteers. Is there anything else you need to know? I mean, I can tell you. I can go on then. And,
lovely. Well, it's up to yourself. We'll find out more about you as we go, I'm sure, about your time in BB.
Time in BB,
yes,
absolutely.
Perfect. Kenneth, would you like to go next?
Right. Well, my name is Kenneth Vennard. I was born in Portadown in 1948. And with regards to my name, Kenneth, I'm called Ken by my friends, Kenny in Boys Brigade circles, and my mother always said I christened my son Kenneth and he should be called Kenneth, so she called me Kenneth. I was married in 1972 to a wonderful girl from Portadown and have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. My wife has suffered from MS since 1983 and is secondary progressive, requiring a lot of attention at the present day as she has suffered more. Since leaving school, I worked as a quantity surveyor until 2023, and I eventually retired from quantity surveying. I followed Manchester United from an early age and travelled to Brazil to watch United in 2000 and to South Africa in 2008. And I have been to all the grounds around Europe to watch them in the Championship. And I also follow Irish rugby. I've travelled to see Ireland at 6 Nations venues all over. Now in retirement, I'm a taxi service for grandchildren, an open bank for all the children, all the family. Regarding the BB, that's within the BB. When my older brother, Ted, went to join the BB at 5, I was 4, and I cried that much that my mother took me up to Harry Burrows, the late Harry Burrows, who was in charge of the Life Boys that time, and begged him to make me join, and therefore he asked me to join, and that started my career in the Boys Brigade. The greatest Christian uniform organisation that I believe ever to exist. That was in 1952, and in 1959 I was moved to the 1st Portadown Company section of the BB, and just lived the BB under the great Captain William Coulter. I served in the company section until 1967, passed all my badge work, awarded my Queen's Badge in 1965, and also received my Bronze, Silver and Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, and received my Gold Award at Edinburgh Castle from Sir John Hunt, the explorer. I also was selected to attend the King George VI leadership course in Stirling. I think it was Cairnvale, along with the late Derek Laverty, and from 1st Portadown. During my service in 1st Portadown, I went then in 1966 to Edenderry Methodist to assist the Life Boys and helped out the late Kenny McClatchy there. And when Kenny got me there, then he stepped down in 1968. 7th Portadown Company was formed, and I had moved to the company section in 1993-94 session as captain. And with Mr. Kenneth Twyble, stepped down as company captain. And Neil's still there serving the Boys Brigade and the Lord Jesus Christ, our captain, still advancing Christ's kingdom among boys and the promotion of habits of obedience, reverence, discipline, self-respect, and all that tends towards the true Christian manliness.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And David, well,
Yes,
do you?
pardon me. I must say it's nice to be here and to share these thoughts with you all. I started off working in offices. My main task was offices. Then I moved to the prison service, which I spent 25 odd years there. And then in there, once I had finished my ordinary training, in fact, I started off in the Cromwell Road prison. And then I went to Magabry, and the rest of my time was spent in a workshop producing braille. So Magabry produces braille for visually impaired people outside. Some people think producing braille, all the people there were blind, but they weren't. So I had a very interesting career there doing that. Before that, I spent some time in the police reserve, and then I worked in different offices in Caldergas and other industries. I don't think I ever did any real manual work, but that's where I was outside. I must say the prison bit was very interesting because people were actually producing something for somebody else that was tangible. And we also had, I still do have, a lady who comes in, or a girl then, as our mentor, and she's blind. So whenever we were producing stuff, how does that work? So it was actually getting the end product. We could actually meet the person who was doing it. So that's where I was spent most of my career doing that kind of thing. Then from the Boys Brigade point of view, I started when I was a company section. I don't think I ever met. I got as far as junior section or Angler Boys and all that. The other interesting thing was I would became captain, which was the second captain in our company. The first one was another Johnston at Tom Jaws. Okay. And I hate to say he was a scout. Oh. But he then, I took over from him. And through that then we had all our activities, namely all the badge work, all the awards that you would get up to Queen's Badge and now King's Badge, and then Duke of Edinburgh all the way up to gold. So I sort of helped out with that, and then I just carried on, and I'm still doing that, even though I maybe rely upon other people to come along as well. But I would still go and do all the. I still would be an assessor and all that, that type of thing. Oh, brilliant. So apart from that, then from family wise, I have. I must be married 50 years, and I would have 11 grandchildren and three sons and one daughter. Or two, I haven't got three sons, it's 2 sons and a daughter. And I have 11 grandchildren there. Wow. The oldest there was 23, all down to about 8. So they keep me occupied. And they, believe it or not, are still interested in BB and things like that. So that's really the background that I would have, and I'm still a BB person. I always say that I want to work as a hobby. My real job was Boys Brigade.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's great when you do stuff you love, isn't it? And it really does fill you inside. So we all mentioned BB, and that is why we're all here. Between the three of you all have such a wealth of experience and knowledge that you have gained throughout the years. Do you have any highlights from during your time in BB or any fond memories that you like to look back on?
How much time have you?
We have all the time in the world, so we do, Irene.
Well, I omitted to say that I was actually born into BB. Okay, yeah. My late father had his King's Badge. He was awarded his King's Badge in the 19th Belfast Company, which meets in McQuiston Memorial on the Castlereagh Road. So he was one of 3 young men who started the company in the 76th Belfast at Craigie Congregational Church, on Craigie Road. So people tell me that I was born just months after the company started, so they reckon I had BB blood in my veins, and that has just been a lifetime for me. We talked about grandchildren, and yes, I have 6 family grandchildren, but throughout BB, I have many adopted grandchildren, where boys on courses soon developed the name Granny Irene rather than Mrs. Lowry. So I'm known right across probably Northern Ireland as Granny Irene. Since I was 15, in the days before there were restrictions and very serious training, I was helping in the Life Boys. And whenever Raymond was helping in the Life Boys as well, and when we were married, the Life Boys formed a Guard of Honour at our wedding. And this month, that would be 61 years ago. Of course, I was a child bride. My mother had to sign to allow me to be married in those days, under 21. So really, I've stayed in the 76th. And again, as I say, my late husband, he became leader in charge of the junior section when it changed from Life Boys, and there was difficulty with staffing the company section, and I thought I would be better to move into company section, because if I'd stayed with him in the junior section, I would have been organising him as well as all the boys, as well as organising him at home. I would have been organising him at BB. So throughout our married life, BB was central, and again, as you've just said, my day job I enjoyed, and I really worked for the BB. But then, of course, I also did a bit of studying as well, and I did some Open University and Queen's continuing education, and thinking of going into different spheres, but because of BB, I didn't have time to do the things that I thought I might do. But that was my choice. As special memories, well, there are just lots, and probably could keep you here for a very long time. Serving on battalion committees, I don't know how that happened, but soon I seemed to be in lots of committees, both at group level, in the days whenever we had groups, and we had maybe about 42 companies in East Belfast group, and battalion and Northern Ireland district at Larne. And I really appreciate the time that I spent on those committees with some of the most sincere Christian men and women. And I was then being trained by them, and then I became a trainer. So I have been involved in training right through my BB life, boy training, officer training, captain training. I was Queen's Badge Advisor for East Belfast for many, many years, and thoroughly enjoyed that, going in and out of the different companies, seeing the boys at work, and then serving on the completion courses at Rathmore. And well, we could stay here all day talking about the fun. It wasn't all serious. There was lots of fun at Rathmore. Indeed, one day I was accused, and this was on a KG6 course, I was accused of stealing bread from the freezer by the warden. And I went, if you'd ever been there and knew the warden, and because the boys were so hungry at supper time, and these were big guys, there might have been 2 girls on that particular course, and they were starving, and they hadn't left enough for supper. So I knew that where the freezer was, so I just went and took a couple of loaves out for them to make toast, you know.
So you did steal it?
I didn't steal it. No, I just borrowed it. And those memories are, you know, getting the vacuum cleaners out and hoovering the hallway at Rathmore, because they'd gone out and they had come in with their muddy feet, and we were scared stiff of the warden at the time. He cracked the whip and we were all supposed to jump. So, of course, all those residential courses all meant a lot to me. And I must say, in those days, my late husband, Raymond, was very supportive. It wasn't a case of me saying I'm away. He always said, yes, go ahead. Occasionally he would have come as well on the staff. But of course there have been really special times, and I suppose one of my very fond memories as well would be in our own company, the night on which our enrolment took place, and my husband and my two sons and myself, the four of us, were all enrolled as officers in the 76th Company. And my son went on to be captain for a while until family matters meant that he had to give that up. But we had some fun and fellowship throughout the times that we spent. And I just continued to learn. Whilst I was passing on training, I was passing on training which I had also benefited from over the years, and that was good. And highlights of seeing boys receiving their Queen's badges, boys who had been with us from Anchor Boys. I had the honour of being the first female president of the Belfast Battalion in the year 2000. And that was a special time, and again gave me opportunity to move around BB just at a much wider area than our own company and our own area, our own district. So I have many friends throughout BB, and I will say at the difficult times, whenever I was ill, and then at the time of Raymond's death, the BB people just closed in around me, and they were as close nearly as family. And so to me it's just been a delight. I was over in London with some of the folks for the Queen's 90th birthday celebrations, been to brigade councils, England, Scotland and Wales, and well, we could keep you here all day telling you the fun that we got up to. It wasn't all serious. A very special time for me was whenever we always had the Gazette magazine coming, and the headline on the front cover was of the new moderator of the United Reformed Church of England and Wales was a boy who grew up in our church in our Boys Brigade company, and at one time was helping with the Life Boys along with me, and then he had an article in the BB Gazette, and he attributed the fact that he was in the church as a minister and he had done his doctorate. He attributed it to the officers in the 76th Boys Brigade Company, and I thought that was just so special. And that is special to me, the number of boys who have gone through our company and other companies, and to know that they're continuing to work for Christ in many ways, maybe not necessarily in BB, but they're out there. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Irene. That was brilliant. We'll have to sit and hear some more of those stories later on, so we will definitely. Would either of yourselves like to share next?
Yeah, well, just like Irene, every moment, the highlight of volunteering, every moment has been a highlight. I can't, from I joined in 1952, I've had highlights, but I've printed out some of them, and playing football for First Portadown BB Company was a highlight for the career. When I had ages, and because I played along with the great Mervyn Hare, who played for Linfield, Ronnie McFall, who played for Glentoran and managed Portadown Football Club, Brian and Ronnie Morrison brothers, who played for Glenavon and Portadown, and unfortunately I never made those dizzy heights. But what a time we had with those boys. We'll never forget the sport and the time we spent at Stirling from the King George VI leadership course. I have a photograph with all the 9 boys that went, 13 boys I think from Northern Ireland, and all their signatures at the back. And I'd love to, now that we've got back again, to meet some of those boys again. Unfortunately, one that went with me, Derek Laverty, has passed on here not so long back. And I was saying to Irene earlier on, one of the memories I had was in the late 1960s, early 70s, I think, when I was with the Life Boys, and we won through to the Northern Ireland finals, the figure marching competition. And we had to travel to May Street on the train, on the steam train. So we travelled down to May Street, and then we walked from Great Victoria Street station around to May Street. And we finished runners-up. We were second. We're beaten by 1 point. And the judge happened to say to me, he said, if your boys' uniforms had been a little bit better, you would have walked it.
Okay.
And the report I gave back to him was, well, if you had to bring 16 boys on a steam train down from Portadown and get off and walk them round here, I think the uniforms would have been a bit shattered. But that was all in good fun, so it was. Receiving my Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award from Sir John Hunt in Edinburgh was one of the highlights that I had. And indeed, another great highlight from our own company's respect was when I was with the young teenager with 7th Portadown. We went to Lurgan and we took down 2 Orlet cottages, if you know what an Orlet cottage is.
I'm not familiar, no.
Just 2 cottages that are prefabbed type Orlet cottages, and we transported them to the Rocky Mountains. Okay. We got enough material out of the 2 houses to put into 1 cottage, and so started the Rocky Mountain Centre, which is still on the go today, run now by Portadown Battalion, and that was fantastic. And another one was in the year 2000, taking 26 officers, parents and boys to Millennium Finals at London. We had 2 teams at London in Feldon Lodge, one for the master team and one for 5-side football. And I remember well, when we were going on the train, my wife had just got into a wheelchair, and we asked the boys, she had to be carried onto the plane. And 4 of those young men from Killigamane Estate carried my wife onto the airplane and put her on the airplane for me and carried her off when they got back to Belfast.
Brilliant.
Lovely.
And another one then, in the year 2012, 7 boys who won their Queen's Badge nominated myself for the Pride of Britain Awards, and I was awarded the Northern Ireland winner and proceeded to London for the national finals for work with young boys, especially the Boys Brigade. And every year since that, those 7 boys and myself, they still meet up and we have a Chinese meal. And they come home, some boys come home from London to be with their family, and they never forget to turn up for the meal every Christmas Eve or every Christmas around the Christmas time. Memories are made all these times, and during that I just wanted to read a letter I received from Alex Ferguson. I was going out to football competition on a Saturday morning. There was a letter came from Manchester United Football Club, and I just threw it in the corner, waited to come home. I opened up when I came home, because I had met Sir Alex Ferguson when I travelled to Brazil to see United play in the World Club Championship. And Alex Ferguson, who was a Boys Brigade member in Glasgow, said, "Dear Kenny, I am writing to congratulate you on winning the Northern Ireland section of the Pride of Britain Award. As you are a huge fan of Manchester United, we could not let this occasion pass without congratulating you. 60 years with the Boys Brigade is a fantastic achievement. You have done a grand job. Well done. The principles of the Boys Brigade are a great foundation to all youngsters, and they still exist within me. Discipline, loyalty and faith. You don't need much more than that. Once again, Kenny, congratulations on your much-deserved award. Keep up the good work." And that came from Sir Alex Ferguson. And I was really excited, and I thought that was fantastic that he had spent time, and Manchester United spent time to send that letter to a Boys Brigade. And then also on the 9th of May 2014, I received a letter from the Cabinet Office that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II graciously had approved that I be awarded the British Empire Medal in the birthday 2014 honours list. And of course I visited Buckingham Palace for work with young people, and particularly the Boys Brigade in Northern Ireland. And also, don't forget the Boys Brigade camps. They were the greatest highlights of our lives. And when I went to camp at the first Portadown Boys Brigade, we used to have a song. We sang, "Tramp, tramp, tramp, the boys are marching. Cheer up, lassies, here we come. We're a company of renown, and we come from Portadown, and the number of our company is one." And you're talking about bread and jam. You and the boys, we used to sing a song.
That's right.
There is a BB camp down Portbush Way, where we get bread and jam 3 times a day. Roast beef we never see, we get no sugar in our tea. Now we are gradually fading away.
Oh, that's a real old one now. That's a real old one.
Oh, I love it.
So that shows you how old I am then.
Favourite one. Yeah. That's why we're here, of course, because we're old.
Not at all.
But Boys Brigade Bible classes, I remember Boys Brigade Bible classes on a Sunday afternoon, 40 to 50 boys in the lecture hall in Portadown with singing songs and those choruses, and Walter Kettle, the late Walter Kettle leading the boys singing. And when I meet boys from the BB at that age that's still around, those are the things we talk about, the BB camps and the Bible classes. We also had a number of boys over at the Cenotaph March Past on the 11th of November 2018. It was a great occasion. But that was marking the last day of the guns fell silent at the end of World War I. I could go on and on with many, many things, but every occasion, every time that we do something in the Boys Brigade, that's a memory. So there you are.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That sound like some great memories there. So they do. And David, how about
Thank
yourself?
Well, after hearing all of that,
Follow that. Well, follow that, David.
I'm glad I'm at the end. All I have to say is, I know all about that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for letting us know. Anyhow, I suppose maybe to things around the wrong way. What impresses me most is just being an officer captain, and now a retired captain, and still an officer in the company section, working with boys, and telling them, the object, obedience, reverence, self-respect, discipline, all toward a true Christian values, in a way that's relevant to the modern way of thinking, even though the principle is still there. It's how you present it. And to me, that is probably a real highlight, just being able to do that every week. And no matter how often I go to the BB, it's just like going for the first night. Yeah. It's not a bore, or it's not, what am I going to do? All that is there. And talking with boys, going through the program that is BB, yet doing it from, how people see things now. I don't mean to say you change anything, it's how you present it. Talking to boys. And some people might think, a younger person should do that. But younger people should be doing it. But we have experience that we can add, as long as we don't sort of, this is how you do it, you're doing it wrong. We can encourage. So I think the BB for me that's what it is. Now, as we went along through that, other people seem to think you might need some recognitions for some of the things you did do, and none of us were doing it to get there. It happened. And I suppose one of the other highlights is boys getting their Queen's badge, King's badge now, and their Duke of Edinburgh gold and so forth. We also had one boy with special needs, and he actually got his gold, which was a great delight. And not only that, it was a great delight for him as well. And he actually got to Buckingham Palace and was able to meet people. And I actually got talking to the Duke, which would be Edward at the time, I think.
Yeah.
The other thing I should say is that I also had the privilege or whatever of meeting both dukes. So I got back a bit older than that, but it was interesting to see. And I always found that whenever they were doing the presentations, that you thought they were talking to everybody, or to you specifically. Now, how they did that, I have no idea. But you felt that you were part, and only you was a person of interest. But the interesting thing was that whenever they were doing it, that gave you something that you felt that they were the leader, and they were giving you their attention. And I think that helps then pass that on down. through the years.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing was that I also had a visit whenever I was over doing Duke of Edinburgh. I've actually meeting the Duke of Edinburgh, Edward, personally.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he wanted me to do that, but I had a few words, and which was very, very interesting.
Okay.
And I must say, how they do that, just talk to you as if, and you just talk to them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think too that also goes back to when you're meeting, doing work with boys. They're important too. You know, people are important, and they're important. And I think if you can bring that to them, we also went camping to Romania, and we went to Holland. That was very, very good. And we actually had a pre-trip just to see what we were going to do and all that, and it was very interesting. So we've seen all the lowlands, how they rode their bicycles through towns. They used to have multi-storey car parks for bicycles.
Wow.
Bicycles everywhere. Romania was very interesting because one of my daughter-in-laws is Romanian.
Oh.
So we happened to took her, it was a BB and GB trip for both. We went there. And of course, they showed us around, gave us all it was very, very interesting. We went to Dracula's Castle and all that. Went to the salt mines, which are something else. And I think too, there was also in both camps, there was a kind of a faith aspect where people took part in the prayers. Young people I'm talking about.
Oh, brilliant.
And that was very, very rewarding. And it just happened. It was not, it just happened.
They never forget those.
No, that's true. And the other thing too, I think, the other thing, at the time of the centenary, I happened to be the president of the Ours Battalion. So that was very interesting because with the parades and all, you're representing the battalion at the time.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you could talk about.
It really is,
but to me, it's all just come from by chance because you were doing something.
Yeah.
And it was, how do you put it, not for glory, but for his glory.
Yes.
So I would have, if I have all those things, we also had a quick batch presentation at Windsor. I think it was one of the centenary ones, and the Queen was actually handing these out. And we had a boy who went. So it was very interesting getting the Queen's band personally from herself, which I thought was very interesting. Apart from that, there's other things that down to BB training at Rathmore, I would have helped out with the completion courses and stuff like that. So apart from that, there's hundreds of other things you could talk about, but and all the things that you got as a reward, I would have put that down to just doing something for boys.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, it's definitely all the, the camps and the trainings, Bible classes, they really do shape you, and after your time in the Boys Brigade, and especially for yourselves as leaders and captains, it definitely shapes yourselves too, and it's great that you have taken that experience on or passing that on to the generation that are currently in the Boys Brigade. So I think it's definitely great to be able to.
I'm just going to say one other thing was memorable.
Yes.
An assistant, I'm not going to mention his name, an assistant minister in Bangor had come. We used to go camping with First Bangor Boys Brigade, and we were at Cleethorpes, I think, or someplace. And Hugh Brown was the captain at the time. Half of us went to look at some boring. At the time, I look back and think that was interesting, but at the time you were out to play football. So we came back. The man in charge of the other section was the assistant minister. We come back to the swimming pool where we left him, and here was the minister outside. He said, "Where's all the boys?" He says, "They're all in there." He said, "What are you doing out here?" He says, "I was thrown out."
Oh,
I'm not mentioning his name, but you would know his name if I mentioned that. So there's plenty of wee things like that.
yes.
I also remember some of the boys I would have met recently go back to the Boys Brigade. That made a difference in my life. They would have said, this is maybe 20 years later. And if it wasn't for the BB, I would have been somewhere else.
Oh, amazing.
So I think there's a lot of stories like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure Aaron was talking about those.
Yes. It'd be great, as the current generation of boys and young men who are all in BB now. Whenever they're older, it'll be great, I'm sure, to hear their stories too. If they think, oh, BB did that for me, and now I want to.
Absolutely. Just recently, on 2 occasions, I happened to be at a funeral, and as I was leaving, the grandson of the gentleman who had passed away stepped in front of me, and he said, "You're Irene Lowry?" And I said, "Yes." I no recollection of this man who I was looking at. He said, "You organised my Queen's Badge course." I hadn't seen him in so long. And then when we were up at Stormont there a few weeks ago,
Yes.
another man with very little hair came over and said, "Do you not remember me from Queen's Badge course?" And I'm looking at him and thinking, oh my goodness, what age must I be? Because when I looked at him, but those are things. And camps, I mean, again, the camps were absolutely super.
You talk about meeting people, Irene. I remember when I went, my daughter brought me to the Andrew Rio concert. And the security guards, when they're going in, this guy stopped me and he said, "You're Kenny Vennard." And I said, "I am." He said, "You're from the Derry Methodist Boys Brigade." I said, "Yes, but I haven't a clue who you are."
Exactly.
He said, "I came through your Boys Brigade company."
Yeah, that's it. It's that thinking, oh gosh. And when I say to them, tell me I didn't look like this 40 years ago, but there must be something that people remember. When I admitted to say, when I was became president of the Belfast Battalion, and I only did that because what I was doing taking on that office was for all the female staff of BB for years and years and years, who very often weren't maybe thanked from district or battalion level. They were there week in, week out, looking after the various sections, the boys in the various sections. So when I was approached by the late Maurice Williamson about taking on this role, I said, well, the only reason I'll do it is that I'll be standing up for so many female officers. And indeed, I think our organisation would not be in the situation it's in today if it hadn't been for the females who kept it going.
We had a girl called Brenda Binks who was good on the piano. She used to come to the Life Boys junior section. And when we were doing the figure marching, she could play the piano and watch the boys and do the beat at the same time.
Brilliant.
And we come to the action song. We remember doing an action song, Jack the Lad and Jim. It was a song about the Navy.
Yeah.
And my brother, he died, who was an officer in the BB, he made swords and the ship and so on. And we had a boy who played the flute. Yeah. And she was able to travel with us and play all the music and watch it all and so on. And my wife also helped. She also helped. We had three. I had 3 ladies helping me, and just myself in the Life Boys before.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. The females, have been very, very much involved from the Robins when we got the Robins started and the little ones and so on. So, but I had this sort of slogan that I gave to the folks that particular night, and I said, only the best is good enough for the boy. And to me, it can either be only the best, or nothing but the best is good enough for the boy. And I was encouraging people to think that way whenever they were preparing for company night, for whatever they were doing, for camps and the places that we went out to with them. And that probably takes us on to our faith development.
But I'm just going to say on that particular point that you're talking about only the best. But I think what boys will get from you more than anything else is what's behind you. I think, okay, you may do all the bit and you're doing this, you're doing that, but if they can feel that you care, you can't always maybe express that, but the way you do it and how you react and what you say, they can pick that up. Even if you're maybe organising things in such a way to get things to happen. But some might mutter a wee bit, but they still feel that that presence of what you do, what you care.
Yeah, it's just bringing everything to them, and you know, the rest will do itself. But yes, no, so I would love now to chat a little bit more about faith, especially through BB. Has BB helped you develop your faith at all, and has God taught you anything through your leadership during your time?
I would say very much so. I think I would be in a different situation today if I hadn't had a life in Boys Brigade. And for me, because I was so involved in organising and being at training courses, I would have been doing a lot of faith development, but I would have been taking prayers. So that meant that I was having to study and prepare for those. So conducting worship on various courses of all ages, having discussion times with other staff, which could have gone on to the wee hours of the morning when everyone should have been in bed and lights should have been out. We were maybe debating various issues of Christianity and our interpretation of Bible passages and so on. So really, to me, yes, BB has definitely had a big impact on my spiritual walk and development, and even just on Tuesday night, just last night, even I was in with the Anchor Boys and listening to them saying their prayer at the end of the night, the Anchor Boys prayer, and not when I looked at them, I am not aware of any one of them being at a Sunday school or in a church. And I thought, you know, they're getting that because they're coming to Anchor Boys and possibly nowhere else. So it's so important that they have, and they always have their Bible story every week, you know. And of course you can take that because of the company I'm in and the situation we're in. We are working with children who don't have church connections. And so it is vitally important that there is worship and Bible teaching at some stage during the night. And I just feel that it is vitally important, vital. But I'm very thankful that I've had the opportunity to be on those various courses, and we very often have had a chaplain who has come in, and we, you know, the staff have learned, as well as the students or the new officers and boys. We've learned from those people, and very often, because we're away at lots of residentials, people are more relaxed, I think, and open then to receive help and instruction, and it's very good.
Brilliant, thank you. Ken, how about you? How?
Well, when I thought about the Christian faith, the first person I thought of was my mother. My mother was a great Christian woman who led us all as a family to God, and my father wasn't so great Christian man until later on in his life. But when he became a Christian, he was a fantastic man. Now, my father was a very good man to us, so he did. But my mother always made sure we were in church. We always take part in the activities that church ran for us, and that was never lost on me. And then on the 24th of May 1964, while serving in the company section, I became a member of the Methodist Church in Ireland and also gave my life to God. Wow. And I remember all the leaders who set the example to me, men of great Christian character who led from the front. And I was drawn to Hebrews 13, verse 7. Remember your leaders who have taught you to work of God. Think of all the good that has come from their lives and try to trust the Lord as they do. Many times I have slipped, but I've always been able to take part, to get up again, to stand erect. And the greatest thing which brought my Christian faith to God was on 18th September 1976, when I served as a part-time reserve member of the RUC. police sergeant and myself was walking along the Brownstown Road at a stock car meeting. The car drove up alongside us. 2 gunmen opened fire from a metre away from us. And Albert Craig, sergeant, was shot instantly in the back and died instantly. And how the guy missed me, I do not know. As I turned around to ask questions, I must have hit his gun, and he just opened up and went up, and I wasn't so badly injured. But at that time, someone lifted me by the scruff of the neck and put me in behind the car. And to this day, I believe it was God. And he had something, and it said that God said to me, I have work for you to do, a family to raise, and a wife to care for. And even though I didn't know it, my wife had MS at that time. God taught me to continue to put my trust in him. And if I had died along with Albert that night, how they missed us from meter out, I do not know. But if I had died, my son would have grown up with no father. I wouldn't have had 2 daughters, the 2 greatest daughters that ever existed in the world, as we all say to our families, and 7 wonderful grandchildren, of which one now is an officer in Milltown Boys Brigade, 1st Milltown Boys Brigade, and is working well with the junior section. Although he's studying at university as well. God taught me to continue to put my trust in him, and that all things are possible. During the years at 7th Portadown, also I was able to show by example that God would be there for all the boys. I think example was the great word to be used. We show if we set our example, and this has been proven correct when I meet young men now, and I met one not so long back, and they're faithful servants of the Lord, and not ashamed to say it was through the Boys Brigade. Some boys even told me they missed Bible class just to go to the Boys Brigade to play football. And now they're running the Boys Brigade in places like Rich Hill, Portadown, great Christian men. My faith gets stronger as the years go by. And in difficult times, there's a verse in the Bible that I need to keep you going. And I still teach it to the boys. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verses 9 and 10. And it says in the New Living Bible, young man, it's wonderful to be young. Enjoy every minute of it. Do all you want to. Take in everything. But realize that you must account to God for everything you do. So banish grief and pain. But remember that youth, with the whole life before it, can make serious mistakes. And what I said to the boys, always trust in the Lord, for there's no other way. And as our chaplain preaches at our church services, the Reverend Alan Wardlow, he always says, come to the Lord, you must be saved. And he says, I am telling you folks, and I will not be responsible if you fail to do so. Thanks be to God. And all these things, remember, so it's the way we put our faith forward. I'm a great believer in by actions rather than words. And if I show by example, then that's the way it is to be.
Yeah, that's it. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was great. David, how about you?
I would say that whenever I was younger, I always used to make sure I was not available to go to Sunday school. So when I come near the time to go, I was not. My excuse was I didn't know. But eventually my mother and father, they were churchgoers, and eventually I did go to church. Yeah. But it was with some of my friends who then, outside the BB, where we're out, you'd have Christian coffee bars and stuff, even in those days.
Yeah.
And that's where I became a believer there. Brilliant. And in the BB then, because of its foundation, I was able to grow in that, because the foundation, I was able to make use of what I had become. And that was a foundation for me to build on.
Yeah.
So I would have built on that, and then as I went through those, just talk to the boys. Okay, in Bible class you would have said things. I also too remember that going to camp, it was a time where different people took times to share, in the morning and evening devotions. I've also had a thing called Thought for the Day, which came after lunch. And you could go to that if you wanted or not. And what I found was that they had questions they could ask.
Oh, brilliant.
And points of view that they might want to say. And then what you would do is you would explore that. and then point out the Bible and Scripture fits into that, even though sometimes it might seem it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good thing, because as people grow, that things don't seem to fit. It's just knowing how to look at it.
Yeah.
And there's one time I can remember we're having this thought for the day. It must have been an evening one. And there was nice and warm, the window was up. And so I was sitting beside the window. Next thing is, the window just dropped. The person screamed and leapt across the room. And I thought that was kind of memorable.
Yeah.
But apart from that, some years later, we went with a GB at times.
Okay.
One of the girls come and said to me at one of those talks, she said she became a believer.
Wow.
Now, I hadn't known about this, but later on, you would have heard those sort of stories. Of course, when young people are doing things, you don't always hear this, but things are going on that perhaps you don't realise.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you think they're not listening, or sometimes they're doing what they're doing. But if you are telling the truth from a loving point of view, it will go there.
Yeah.
And it's not to do with us. All we have to do is to be faithful.
We must continue to do it, David.
Pardon?
We must continue to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the other thing was too that, again, the camp thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think is very important. But the BB, day by day, Bible class, and people always say about, drill P and all that. Sometimes I would think that, I would say to the boys, you see, whenever you're out, doing whatever you're doing, and you have no uniform, but pretend you're wearing one.
Okay.
Because you still are wearing one, because you're still in his army, or you're still in his Boys Brigade.
Yeah.
So it should be, years ago, everybody wore their BB badge.
Uh-huh.
Nowadays, it's not so important. But I would try to remind them that you're still a BB boy, and you've got your uniform on. And I think it also refers to that we're all one in him.
Mm-hmm.
So the BB, for everybody, all the boys, it's just the same uniform.
Yeah.
And not more than that, if we're all in him, we're all the same. Because whenever he comes, we'll recognise him, and he'll recognise us. So I try to remind them about that. And when they're doing their different badge work and stuff, even drill, PE, you're doing it for him. Do it to the best, not just for your own self, but for everybody else who's there, but for him. So I look upon the BB as nearly a training thing in spirituality.
Yeah.
Even though some people say P is P and that, but it should be done with him in mind. So the faith bit reminds me of that. Not only that, I have to remember I've got to stick up to it as well, because if you're doing it all the time, you can get lax, and you can just, I'll go and do it tonight or whatever. But you've got to go with enthusiasm and with the joy of knowing him.
Yeah.
So that reminds me about the faith that I had got to the BB. Our first captain was always guiding us in that way, Tom Johnston.
Uh-huh.
So I still remember him from what he left. So no matter where you go, what you do, you will leave something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and if it's faith, and it come from faith, all the better.
That's it. Uh-huh.
And it's also great to see that they put faith activity in the Queen Keen's Badge Awards.
Yes.
It was
Uh-huh.
never included before.
It was. Then they took it out.
They took it out,
At
yeah.
one time, yeah, it's
Yeah.
back in.
It's back in, which is a great thing now.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
It's so important to have that wee faith element in
Yeah,
there. So It
absolutely.
is, and it's great to see. And I'm sure, it's for many boys who don't yet have made that decision, but it's great to see that it'll be impacting
Yeah,
their lives.
yeah.
And
No, it is good to see it back
Yeah,
in.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
But for many years there, in recent years, it had disappeared. But it had been in the former Queen's Badge books and so on. But one of the things I omitted, and in case he will probably follow this, my grandson, my
Okay.
eldest grandson, he went right through the company, and indeed he became, he went on the KG6, he completed his KG6 and so on. Unfortunately, he moved to a church where there is no Boys Brigade,
okay.
but he is fully involved in the youth work in it, which I say, well, he got all his training through the 76th Belfast company, but also through all the training courses
Indeed,
that he had to
yes.
complete,
Uh-huh. It's
and
good life skills. that you
including
learn.
coming here for his
Uh-huh.
KG6
Oh,
uh,
brilliant.
courses as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, well, we do have lots of new young leaders who are working their way up from being boys in the Boys Brigade, or we have some great female officers and young leaders. As I said, we also have new volunteers who have just started their leadership journey in the Boys Brigade. And I just wanted to check if you had any advice for those people who are either starting their journey or who are still quite fresh.
Well, that's very interesting that you've included that, really, because I feel that sometimes people like ourselves who have been in BB for most of our lives perhaps can be a little bit hard on the younger people coming through, maybe a little bit critical at times. And I think back to people who encouraged me to get involved in BB. And I feel I owe them so much. But what I believe is they had faith that I could do what, after training, watching them, that I could carry on what they had started. So I think it's very important that we see all those new young officers trained, male and female, and we pray that they will be able to continue our organisation. It won't be the same as when we went into it, but then life out there isn't the same for any of us. But it is so important. I'm thankful of, I think of one person in particular, the late David Kennedy, and he was a real stalwart of Boys Brigade. And I still remember the night he came to me and said, I think you could join the training committee. But go home and talk to Raymond before you give me an answer. And I thought, well, he trusted me and thought, in those days I was called the big girl. The big girl could probably handle that. And so I like to see the newer officers being given the opportunity. It may be change. It mightn't be something that I like or that we like. But it's still dealing with the boys. It's still advancing Christ's kingdom is the main thing. So, but advice then you're looking for. Well, personally, I think a human model of leadership, I don't think we'll find a better one than the Apostle Paul. When we read about Paul and how good a leader he was, and he was a true leader of his people. And personally, I would see Paul as a hero because of how he was a natural leader and how he led. But I would say to young leaders, don't try to do it all your own way. In fact, you really are in a team. And you probably, the old slogan, there's no I in team. There's no letter I in the word team. So I would be advising them not to be afraid to change, but always work as a team. Listen to what your team members, your other staff, what they have to say. Consult with them, and things will go really well. I believe in Proverbs. We read quite a lot of very fine instructions in the book of Proverbs, and indeed the new translations of the Bible are very good actually with Proverbs. And there's one particular verse there that I'm just going to read, and that is Proverbs 16 verse 3. Put God in charge of your work, then what you have planned will take place as you advance. Go ahead and advance in Christ's kingdom. So I think a true leader has to have the heart of a servant as well as a leader.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much.
Yes, be positive all the time. And to come back to Irene's, we put our boys through the Proverbs for the faith thing, and it teaches you how to live your life, how to stand up to or how to be kind to your leaders, for your school teachers, to trust your school teachers, how to do things, how not to make enemies, be friends with everyone. You just got to read through Proverbs. But my advice to the boys would be just very simply, be positive, be active, do the best you can, and enjoy every minute of it. Enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah.
And your officers will, most officers, majority of officers will be there to help you and encourage you along.
That's it. Oh.
One of the things I was thinking, and maybe it's the wrong way around, but ask yourself from time to time, why am I here?
Yes.
Why am I doing this? Am I doing this for me? Or am I doing it for the boys? Am I doing it for the Valswood Kingdom?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get a bit lost in that, and we just go there. You may be good at doing stuff, and you may have a certain type of interest. But why am I here? And that, going back to some of the Bible quotations and stuff like that, and it points out that I remember one time this person was telling me that they were having their prayer time in the morning, and they got up, walked away, and said, "Who was I talking to?" They got down the usual thing, done the whole spiel, said, "I thought, I'm talking to nobody, because it was me talking to me." So they hadn't put God in the right place. So if God builds a house, it will stand. But if he doesn't, if you're doing it for yourself, because of the all the temptations that are around and the work of the evil one, it'll crumble. But if you go with that right intention, that's what I'm saying, ask, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Again, then, with the boys, I often think, Aaron has said about, them changing. Sometimes I wonder, maybe evolving might be better.
Okay.
So you're actually being aware of what's going on. So all of a sudden, sometimes change, you're doing something, all of a sudden you have to stop and do something else.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yes.
But if you're evolving, it means you're taking note and you're looking at the modern bits, you're looking at the old bits, and you're evolving. And sometimes that can be, I'm not saying change should not happen, but if you can evolve,
Yes.
sometimes you don't even know a move from there to A to B, but it will have had an effect. I think, again, the boys listening to other boys, perhaps would be almost the same age, but just listen. And one of the things I found that if you are a young leader, it's surprising how many boys think you're great.
Yeah.
You're their idol. You know, and if you can, sometimes the best type of leadership is your example. And if you're doing this example from work of the BB, it's surprising who of them those boys would take notice and follow that. So I would say yes. Just think of what you're doing, and have meetings with everybody, the older ones, the younger ones, and say what you think, because it might surprise you. Some of the older ones might like those ideas.
Yeah.
You know, I often think that sometimes older people, maybe a good example, I love going to fairgrounds with my grandchildren, simply because if I was seen on one of those fairgrounds by myself, people would raise eyebrows. But if I'm with them, I can enjoy that. So if I can enjoy it with my boys, with my other officers, in that same forum, we're all together and we're supporting each other. And some of the things we might not want to do become possible because of what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. That's brilliant. So we'll be coming towards the end of our podcast very shortly. I've had the best time, and I could sit here for hours just listening to all the stories and just hearing all the wonderful things. But I'm going to ask you a question that we've always had in our podcast. So anyone who has listened since season 1 will know that we always ask our guests the same question as we come to the end of the episode. It'll stay on sort of advice. What type of advice do you wish you would have been given when you were younger?
Just to be serious.
It doesn't have to be serious. It's whatever you want it to be.
Well, one thing I would say is if somebody, I mean, I grew up obviously in a family which was totally committed to Boys Brigade, but it's okay to say no, because I've been accused of not knowing how to say no, and that's all right to do that. The other thing, of course, that I would have liked somebody to have taught me was how to look after the pennies.
Okay.
And those who know me would know why I'm saying that.
Oh, brilliant.
Silly.
Oh, no, we love it.
Well, I think that I covered that by Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verses 9 and 10. Young man, do all you can in life. Enjoy life to the full. And don't waste any time. But always remember you have to answer to God.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And David, yourself?
The thing I was thinking of, almost in lines with what Irene was thinking, but, you know, if you're at a meeting or you have some ideas or somebody has said something, rather than make a decision, just can we think about this? Can we pray about this? And see how that happens. So just take time and let it happen. Remembering all that you put forward. And okay, if it's an easy answer, yes. But if it's thinking, just don't try to say, it's interesting. Can we think about that?
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. That's such good advice. I will have to remember all of that for myself too, because I can relate with you on your one, Irene. But I just want to thank you all so much again for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and spend it this afternoon with me here on our podcast. It was really great to have you all, and I've had the best time chatting with you. So I also want to thank everyone who's been listening or watching online, and to thank them for doing that, and just to remind you to check out all of our previous episodes, and there will be more coming soon. So thank you all very much.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for organising us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the BBNI podcast. Subscribe to us on wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to joining with you next time.